In terms of singing, I've just always considered myself basically a soprano. You know, I sang a lot of different stuff.
Imagine this. Los Angeles, 1979. Inside the famed Troubadour, just before showtime. The air buzzes with nervous energy, guitar riffs cut through the haze of sound checks, glasses clink at the bar, and rock legends drift like ghosts through narrow backstage corridors. But then, everything unravels. A young staffer charges into the promoter's lounge, pale and panicked. Linda Ronstadt just left the green room again, and she didn't say a word. And why? It all boiled down to a single name scrawled on the performance schedule. It wasn't hers, it wasn't the Eagles', it was his. She didn't argue, she didn't stay. With one sharp glance, she vanished. No explanation, no drama, just a sudden disappearance and a silence that would linger for decades. Nobody truly grasped what set her off that night, not the fans, not the crew. And Linda? She never said a word. No rants on television, no salacious magazine quotes. Just flawless poise in every interview and a mysterious calm. For nearly half a century, that silence stayed untouched. But now, she's finally breaking it, one name at a time. In an unexpected moment of candor, Linda Ronstadt is naming the 7 artists she could never bring herself to forgive. Not over petty feuds, not over minor creative disagreements, but over wounds that went deeper than anyone ever guessed. This isn't a list of petty squabbles, it's a confession, a reckoning. And some names will knock the wind out of you. Because the truth? Some of them were like family once. At the very top of that list is a drummer who shot to fame by stepping right over her in the process. You might think you figured it out, but trust me, you haven't. This is about the man who traded gratitude for arrogance. Before he became a chart-topping icon, Don Henley was just the quiet percussionist in Linda's shadow. It was the early 70s, and Linda was drawing massive crowds across the country. Henley, still unproven, rode in the wake of her rising stardom. She offered him a stage when no one else would. But as the Eagles soared, Henley's humility crashed. The band that once opened for her now strutted down the Sunset Strip like it was their private runway. Henley especially seemed to forget who had opened the door for him. Then came the moment that burned the bridge for good. Backstage in 1975 at the Universal Amphitheater, Henley made a snide remark about her musical style. He ridiculed her for relying on cover songs, implying she had no voice of her own. The insult didn't just bruise her, it erased years of mutual respect. Linda didn't argue, she took action. She revoked his access immediately, and she never looked back. The music scene was buzzing with hushed speculation. Henley's unchecked arrogance had finally drawn attention. In quiet corners, friends and collaborators whispered about his drug-fueled meltdowns, ego-fueled choices, and vicious comments spoken behind locked doors. But what wounded Linda the most wasn't just that he betrayed her. It was how deeply he disrespected her. Later in private moments, she'd describe him as a fame chaser who sacrificed his integrity climbing the industry ladder. Still, Henley wasn't the only one to cross boundaries. Linda's next conflict didn't unravel in silence or shadows. It exploded on stage, right in front of a live audience, with a drunken lead singer, a stolen microphone, and a public humiliation she would never recover from. The night Jim Morrison shattered all limits. It was 1968. The era of peace and love had faded, but disorder thrived. The Doors were pure fire, igniting every venue they stepped into. Meanwhile, Linda Ronstadt fought against the odds to stake her claim in a male-dominated scene. That evening, inside a private gathering near the Whiskey A Go-Go, icons and outcasts mingled without boundaries. But no one was ready for what happened the moment Jim Morrison caught sight of her. He'd been drinking heavily, shirt hanging open, weaving his way through the crowd like a storm. In a bizarre blend of ego and spontaneity, he suddenly yanked Linda onto the stage. There was no rehearsal, no agreement, just raw chaos. Then, without a word, he leaned in, attempting a kiss as eyes stared on. Linda jerked back instinctively. Thrown off balance, Morrison stumbled, colliding with the mic stand and nearly wrecking the entire setup. The room froze, shocked gasps, uncertain laughter, nervous glances. The moment wasn't caught on film, but it lived on in whispers and late-night tales across radio waves. Not only did Morrison fail to say sorry, he made it worse. During a radio interview months later, he ridiculed Linda, calling her sweet but spineless, minimizing her as unremarkable. Linda didn't retaliate in the press. She never went public with it. But in close company, her remarks hit harder than any headline. She described Morrison as a brilliant disaster who spread chaos wherever he landed. To her, he represented more than a reckless artist. He was the embodiment of toxic masculinity infecting the industry. His actions left emotional scars, but the next betrayal didn't involve slurred insults or messy advances. It happened during a shared mission, a protest Linda deeply believed in, when she thought she was safe among allies. But when the movement got personal, it was Neil Young, one of her supposed comrades, who turned on her. The year was 1976, and a benefit concert supporting farm workers had drawn together iconic voices of rock, most notably Linda Ronstadt and Neil Young. Though their shared ideals hinted at camaraderie, things shifted dramatically once they stepped under the stage lights. Backstage, a quiet storm erupted as Neil brushed off Linda's creative ideas. He turned down her song selections, denied her access to certain performances, and went so far as to call her sound too mainstream. To top it all off, he allegedly told reporters after the show that she didn't have the grit for real activism. In other words, he was questioning her legitimacy as a protest artist. Tears filled Linda's eyes as she exited the venue, wounded by what felt like betrayal from a peer she once admired. This wasn't just a slight, it felt like a knife from someone she believed stood on the same side of the fight. Hearing those words from Neil stung in a way critics never had. What happened that night split their paths forever. From that day forward, even the most righteous causes couldn't bring her back to the same stage with Neil. In private, Linda described him as all volume and venom, someone whose message was strong, but methods were cruel. To her, his activism seemed tainted by ego and hypocrisy. And if that painful night affected her heart, the next encounter would go straight for her artistic soul. Not all wounds come from the press or politics. Some hit hardest in the studio. This particular blow came during a collaborative session with none other than Frank Zappa. The year was 1974, and buzz was building around what many assumed would be an unforgettable partnership. Zappa, known for his eccentric brilliance and avant-garde flair, had a reputation as rock's rebellious genius. Linda, meanwhile, was soaring, her genre-blurring talent and powerful voice making her a standout in any room. On paper, their pairing was the stuff of innovation, but once they began working, it unraveled almost instantly. Linda had walked in eager to record one of Zappa's songs, but things derailed quickly in the studio. Zappa laughed off her input, saying her sound lacked grit and authenticity. He accused her of turning his raw, edgy music into background noise fit for advertisements. The atmosphere grew heavier with every minute until it cracked during a rehearsal. Mid-session, Zappa abruptly brought the music to a halt. With every eye on him, he turned toward Linda and delivered a blow disguised as a comment. "This," he sneered, "is what happens when a pop singer gets her hands on something real." The room stiffened. No one said a word. Linda didn't respond, didn't protest, just calmly packed her things and left, her spirit bruised. She never came back, and never again worked with Frank Zappa. To the public, she kept her silence. Off camera, those closest to her still remember exactly what she said. Though she praised Zappa's brilliance, she also called him harsh, admiring his intellect, but declaring her trust was forever gone. Working with temperamental artists was expected in her line of work, but this next chapter hit differently. The wound that followed went deeper than creative tensions or ego-driven disputes. It wasn't a wild genius or unruly showman who wounded her this time. This was personal, someone she once embraced as family, someone who stood beside her as a pioneer. When the dream of Laurel Canyon started unraveling, David Crosby was at the heart of her heartbreak. In those golden years of Laurel Canyon, David Crosby and Linda Ronstadt shared more than music. They shared a vision. Beyond duets and studio hours, there existed a quiet loyalty, born from a countercultural flame they helped ignite. Together, their voices helped define an era, his ethereal harmonies and her fearless vocal shifts. It once felt like nothing could shake their creative rhythm. But by the close of the 70s, their sync had turned sour. It started during a session, a simple suggestion from Linda to shift the key slightly to suit her voice. Crosby waved her off, muttering coldly, "You need to adapt." What could have been a small hiccup turned into something far bigger. Angry words flew, and the conflict spilled past the booth walls. Just days later, rumors of the fallout were already buzzing through the industry grapevine. The feud escalated fast. Crosby took his critique public, speaking out in Rolling Stone. He labeled Linda a constructed image, more marketing than music, more polished than soul. For someone like Linda, who built her success on authenticity and artistry, his comment was devastating. She stayed silent, at least in the media spotlight. But that silence was her power play, not weakness. Behind closed doors, she took decisive action. His name was officially off limits. Her inner circle, bandmates, and crew all followed suit. She erased him from her set lists, playlists, and any space that mattered to her artistry. To her, David Crosby didn't just hurt a friendship, he fractured the spirit of Laurel Canyon itself. She later described him privately as a cautionary tale, proof that even visionaries can lose their way. And though Crosby's betrayal left a scar, the next wound came from a colder place. This one wasn't born from betrayal, it was shaped from cruelty passed off as cleverness. That pain arrived in the form of punk. Elvis Costello's insult was less a critique and more a carefully sharpened spear. Back in 1979, Cleveland pulsed with excitement. A major music festival had pulled in both established legends and rising stars. One of the biggest draws was Linda Ronstadt, riding high after a series of smash hit records. At that moment in her career, she was undeniable, a dominant presence. That evening, the spotlight found her without question. Among those watching closely was Elvis Costello. New to the scene, he had swagger, wit, and a reputation for being brutally honest. He carried punk rock's edge like a weapon, sharp and unrelenting. But what unfolded took everyone by surprise. While speaking to a cluster of journalists, he made a harsh remark, calling Linda's performance brunch background music. It wasn't just a snide comment, it cut deep. News of the insult spread like wildfire. Linda approached him backstage, maybe hoping for a better understanding, or at least a sincere apology. Instead, she received an icy blow. Reportedly intoxicated and smug, Costello met her eyes, lobbed another insult, and walked away without hesitation. That encounter stayed with Linda. To her, Costello wasn't just a rude musician, he symbolized a new wave of performers who prized cleverness over connection. Their critique lacked warmth, their rebellion lacked heart. She didn't see bravery in his bite, just arrogance. But even that sour memory wouldn't be the one that hurt the most. The most painful betrayal came from someone closer in style and soul. Not a punk, but a master of melody, someone who should have blended perfectly with her voice. Their partnership looked perfect on the surface, like a harmony waiting to happen. But behind closed doors, it became a quiet standoff. The tension between striving for excellence and craving control took over. That was Paul Simon's rejection. In 1982, what seemed like a golden opportunity emerged. Paul Simon, a towering figure in songwriting, planned a duet with Linda Ronstadt, the genre-blending superstar. She agreed, and the industry lit up with anticipation. On paper, it was magic waiting to be made. What unfolded was less a collaboration and more a drawn-out ordeal. Right from day one, something didn't sit right. Instead of encouragement, Simon fixated on her performance, frequently pausing scenes to nitpick her word choices even when there was nothing wrong. He made lyrical changes without discussing them, and gave her singing tips that came off more like subtle digs. People close to Linda said she later compared the ordeal to being treated like a schoolgirl under constant watch. Rather than praise, every vocal line she delivered was dissected and second-guessed. What was supposed to be artistic synergy just never clicked. Their creative flame dimmed under the pressure of superiority and unspoken judgment. The track never made it to the public, left incomplete, buried, and forgotten. Still, what lingered for Linda wasn't the song itself. It was the dismissal she felt deep down. Her gift, her years of artistry, warranted respect. But what she got felt more like control than collaboration. After enduring that, she quietly vowed to herself she wouldn't ever share a studio booth with Paul Simon again. That unspoken decision marked the point where Linda Ronstadt's long-held silence about her painful experiences began to unravel. 7 men in her life, 7 painful stories, all concealed beneath a graceful exterior, until now, because every melody often carries a hidden truth, waiting for someone brave enough to reveal it. So why stay quiet all these years? Linda wasn't one to indulge the tabloids. For most of her career, she let her songs speak for themselves. But now, her revelations go beyond bitterness. They're rooted in honesty. She didn't just build a career with her voice, but with resilience, pushing through betrayals, bruised trust, and an unforgiving business. By opening up, she's not seeking to tear reputations down. She's peeling back the curtain. Because real power isn't always in the notes we hit, it's in the moments we decide to finally speak. Now we ask you, so which part of Linda's journey left you stunned? Do you believe her silence was the right choice all along? Share your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, and we'll catch you in the next one.